When you do that with footballers, like he said about Leeds, and when you do things like that about a man like Stuart Pearce, I've kept really quiet, but I'll tell you something. He went down in my estimation when he said that.
I hate him. I hate him more than I've hated anyone in football. And I'm 74 years old now. I've had a long time to think about this, but there are 5 men I will never forgive. 5 men who didn't just beat me. They broke something sacred about the game I loved. This isn't about losing. I've lost titles, I've lost jobs, but I've never lost my soul to the methods these men used. So today, I'm naming them. It started in 1974. I was 23 years old. I was fast. I was hungry. I believed in something then that I still believe in now. That football should be decided by skill and effort, not by who was willing to kick the hardest. The Charity Shield, Wembley Stadium, August 1974. Liverpool against Leeds United. This was meant to be a celebration, a new season, a ceremonial match. But Billy Bremner had other ideas. Bremner was the Leeds captain. Leeds under Don Revie had built their reputation on something toxic. They played dirty, they played cynical. Bremner was their general. I remember the match started, and immediately it became clear this wasn't going to be fair. It wasn't chaos, it was organised. It was systematic. Johnny Giles, another Leeds player, he caught me early on, clocked me, got booked. But that was just the beginning. Throughout the entire match, Bremner targeted me. He kicked me everywhere. Up the backside, in the shins, anywhere he could reach when the officials weren't watching. And when they were watching, he'd do it anyway. This wasn't football. This was torture. Brian Clough was Leeds manager then. The man who'd been criticising Leeds for years before he got the job. Even he said afterwards that Bremner was intent on making my afternoon miserable. He used those exact words. He said Bremner kicked me just about everywhere imaginable until it was only a matter of time before something exploded. And it did. 60 minutes in, after sustained physical abuse, something inside me snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. We ended up fighting, shirtless, in front of thousands of people, in front of the Queen, actually. The image became iconic. 2 men rolling around at Wembley because one refused to accept the rules of the game and the other finally fought back. But here's what made me hate Bremner for 50 years. The punishment. Both of us received 11-match bans. 11 matches. For a Charity Shield incident. I was banned for reacting to what was essentially torture. He was banned for committing it. And we were treated the same. I felt utterly betrayed by that. I still do. The message was clear. If you're skilled, if you're fast, if you play the game the way it should be played, you won't be protected. The hard men would come for you. They'd kick you. And if you defended yourself, you'd be punished just as severely as them. Bremner made it violent. He introduced me to the reality that the pitch was a war zone, and talent meant nothing if you weren't willing to fight. He taught me that fairness was a child's dream. That's the beginning of my hatred for him. Because in that moment, I lost something I can never get back. I lost my innocence about the sport I loved. If Bremner was the enemy at the gate, Laurie McMenemy was the enemy inside the walls. He was my manager, my mentor, and he became the person who taught me that trust is a luxury football doesn't allow. In 1980, McMenemy did something extraordinary. He brought me to Southampton. I was the 2-time reigning Ballon d'Or winner. I'd been playing in Germany at Hamburg. I was at the peak of my career. And Southampton, a club of modest ambition, they had no business signing me. But McMenemy figured out how to do it. The transfer was secretive. We communicated in code. He told people he was sourcing a German light fitting for his home, and that's why he was talking to me. A light bulb. That was the cover story. It was clever, it was conspiratorial, and it created a bond between us that felt sacred. When I arrived, I delivered. 37 goals in 68 appearances. I transformed Southampton. McMenemy and I had created something special. It felt like a father and son relationship. Then came the 1981-82 season. We started to falter defensively. I scored 26 goals. I was the leading scorer in the entire division. But the team wasn't winning enough. We lost 3-0 to Aston Villa, a bad result, a match we should have won. After that game, in the dressing room, McMenemy looked at us and said something I will never forgive. He accused us of cheating. He said we were cheating the fans. We were cheating the club. We weren't trying hard enough. Do you understand what that means to someone like me? My entire life has been built on work rate, on effort, on the idea that you give everything every single day. I came from Scunthorpe United. I worked my way up. I earned everything I achieved through sheer graft. And my own manager, the man I trusted, the man I thought of as a father, he looked me in the eye and called me a cheat. I had never been called a cheat in my life before that moment, not once. And something broke inside me that day, something I've never repaired. McMenemy made it personal. He didn't attack me tactically. He didn't attack me physically. He attacked my character. He attacked my integrity. He used the ultimate insult in British sport to deflect from his own managerial failure. And in doing so, he murdered the relationship between us. I left Southampton shortly after. I forced my own exit because I couldn't play for someone who believed that about me. Couldn't look at him without thinking about that word. Cheat. It echoes in my head even now, 50 years later, and it still hurts. McMenemy tried later to reminisce about the light bulb story, like it was some charming memory from a golden age. But for me, that light bulb only illuminated the darkness underneath. It showed me that the man I trusted was willing to betray that trust when things got difficult, that the bond we'd created was fragile, that loyalty in football is a myth. Ferguson is the most famous one. Everyone knows about the "I would love it" rant, but if you think that was just me losing my temper, you've misunderstood the entire thing. What Ferguson did to me was something far more sinister. Ferguson understood that if you could get inside an opponent's head, you could destroy them without ever stepping foot on the pitch. In 1995-96, we had something magical at Newcastle. We were the entertainers. In January of that season, we held a 12-point lead at the top of the Premier League. We were going to win the title. Everything was perfect. Then Ferguson attacked. But he didn't attack our tactics. He didn't attack our players. He attacked our honour. In April 1996, after a match against Leeds United, Ferguson went to the media and suggested something toxic. He implied that teams like Leeds and Nottingham Forest wouldn't try as hard against Newcastle as they would against Manchester United, that they were lying down for us, that the league wasn't being fair. Do you see what he did there? He weaponised the media. He created a psychological virus. He forced every team we were about to face into a position where they had to prove they weren't cheating. They had to play with manic intensity just to prove their integrity. And that intensity worked in Manchester United's favour. It tilted the entire table. But more than that, he attacked something sacred. He suggested that the professionals in this league, men like Stuart Pearce, would compromise their integrity for some personal reason, that they'd cheat, that the whole system was rigged in our favour. I was furious, not because I was losing, but because he was destroying the sport I love. He was introducing cynicism into a beautiful thing. He was suggesting that football wasn't decided by talent and effort anymore. It was decided by manipulation, by lies, by whoever was willing to degrade the game first. So after we beat Leeds, I did that live interview. I said what I felt. I said he'd gone down in my estimation. I said I would love it if we beat Manchester United. But Ferguson won. Manchester United won the title. And something died inside me that season. Not just the hope of winning, but the joy, the romance, the belief that football could still be pure. Ferguson made it psychological. He introduced a layer of Machiavellian gamesmanship that I found repulsive. He showed me that cynicism beats romanticism, that manipulation beats skill, that honour is a liability in modern football. I resigned in 1997. People said I was giving up, but I wasn't. I was choosing. I was choosing not to become what they wanted me to become. I refused to play the game Ferguson's way, even if it cost me everything. And 50 years later, I still refuse to accept that as just mind games. It was more than that. It was a moral failing. It was a willingness to degrade everything I love about this sport for the sake of a trophy. I returned to Newcastle in January 2008. The fans welcomed me home like a hero, but I was walking into a poisoned chalice and I didn't know it yet. Mike Ashley owned Newcastle then. He'd installed Dennis Wise as executive director of football. I was brought in as manager with one crucial promise. I had final say on all transfers. It was written into my contract. Final say. That was the agreement. I believed them. On August 31st and September 1st, 2008, the final days of the transfer window, Wise approached me with a player he wanted to sign, Ignacio Gonzalez, a Uruguayan midfielder. He said we should bring him in. I asked to see him play. Wise admitted he'd never seen him live. He told me to look him up on YouTube. He wanted me to scout a potential Premier League signing by watching grainy YouTube clips. I watched them anyway, and I rejected the player. I told Wise he wasn't the standard required for Newcastle United. He simply wasn't good enough. Wise smiled. He nodded. He said he understood. Then he signed him anyway. An independent arbitration panel later revealed why. It wasn't about football. It was about commerce. The signing was a commercial deal, a favour to two South American agents to secure first option on future players. Gonzalez's footballing ability was irrelevant. He was a pawn, a transaction, a way for Wise and Ashley to profit from player trafficking. The player played 38 minutes in total. That was his Newcastle career, and the club paid nearly £1 million in wages for the privilege. This is what made me hate Dennis Wise. Not the loss of a football match, not a tactical defeat, but the absolute mockery of the manager's role. But Dennis Wise wasn't acting alone. He was the executor of Mike Ashley's vision. And Ashley is the reason I will never return to St James's Park while he owns the club. Ashley treated Newcastle like a retail store because that's all he knew. That's all he cared about. He reduced a football club, a spiritual home for hundreds of thousands of people, to a profit centre, a commodity to be bought and sold and exploited. When I resigned on September 4th, 2008, I didn't go quietly. I sued for constructive dismissal. I argued that the club had breached my contract, that they'd violated my final say clause, that they'd lied to me and the public. The tribunal ruled in my favour. They found a fundamental breach of contract. They awarded me £2 million in compensation, plus interest, plus all legal costs because the club had deliberately misled everyone. But no amount of money can compensate for what Ashley took from me. Newcastle is my spiritual home. I came there as a manager in 1992 and I built something magical. I came back in 2008 because I believed I could restore that magic. I believed I could make Newcastle matter again. I believed I could give the fans what they deserved. Ashley destroyed that possibility by valuing agent fees over the manager's judgment, by treating the club as a business transaction instead of a sporting institution, by lying and manipulating and prioritising profit over performance. Ashley made it corporate. He showed me that modern football isn't about glory anymore. It's about money. It's about who can extract the most value. It's about treating players and managers as inventory instead of people. I refused to set foot in St James's Park again while he owned it. Not once. And I meant that promise. Because every time I think about walking through those gates, I remember what that club meant to me. And I remember what he did to it. I remember that he broke the bond between a manager and his home. That's an unforgivable betrayal. Do you see the pattern? I'm not a man who hates because of defeat. I've been defeated plenty. I've lost titles. I've lost matches. But I've never hated simply because the other team was better. I hate because they violated principles. Bremner attacked fair play. He introduced violence when the game should have been decided by skill. McMenemy attacked loyalty. He used betrayal to deflect from his own failure. Ferguson attacked honesty. He corrupted the sport with psychological manipulation. Wise attacked professionalism. He mocked the manager's role with corporate greed. Ashley attacked identity. He treated a spiritual home like a retail asset. Each one of them didn't just beat me. They broke something sacred about the game I love. They showed me that football, the pure, beautiful game that made me who I am, was being destroyed by people who never loved it the way I do. But here's what matters. I may not have won as many trophies as Ferguson. I may have lost more matches than I won over my entire career, but I never compromised my integrity to achieve those results. I walked away from millions of pounds rather than become like these men. I refused to degrade the sport I love for the sake of victory. That's the only victory that matters to me now. that I kept my soul when these 5 men tried to take it. I'm 74 years old. I've had a long time to think about this, and I've never changed my mind about a single one of them, because the truth outlives them all. Truth is that they broke the code, and the code is everything.